Good morning. My name is Gary Wiram, and I want to welcome you to today's Good News. Thank you for tuning in with us this morning. This week, today's Good News has started teaching through the little book of Jude, verse by verse and day by day. Today, I get to teach on Jude 1:5. Now, I have to tell you, when I first received this assignment, my immediate thought was, I wonder how many people at Calvary Chapel, Rosarito have Jude 1:5 as their favorite verse. And then I immediately answered myself thinking, probably none. So as I considered the fact that I am going to be teaching on Jude 1:5, I thought, I wonder if that will make that verse much more popular. Is it possible when baseball comes back that we'll see that guy behind home plate in the stands holding up a sign that says Jude 1:5 instead of John 3:16? Well, I really don't think that's going to happen. But I do pray that in addition to getting the message from Jude 1:5 today, we'll also be reminded that every word in the Bible is important, because every word in the Bible is breathed by God. And here are the words that he gave us for Jude 1:5. But I want to remind you, though you once knew this, that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe. As we read this verse, I think it's important to remember that the author, Jude, was the half-brother of Jesus. And I think it's also important to remember that Jude didn't really get it, that Jesus was Messiah, until after the resurrection. His purpose in writing this epistle was to exhort the early church to, quote-unquote, contend earnestly for the faith against apostates whose teachings were leading the people astray. To do this, in Jude 1:5, he begins to give examples of the past when God dealt harshly with apostates. This was in order to remind people of lessons they might be forgetting. The examples he's pointing to here include the time when God dealt with Israel when they refused to go into the land after Moses had sent 12 men in to spy out the land. Here's what we're told about that in Numbers 14:29. The carcasses of you who have complained against me shall fall in this wilderness, all of you who were numbered, according to your entire number, from 20 years and above. Now, in case you don't remember how that all turned out, Joshua and Caleb were the only two out of those 12 spies who actually encouraged Israel to go into the land. Well, those were the only two of that generation who did not fall in the wilderness. Now, that may seem like a pretty harsh reminder, but remember that Jude didn't get it, that Jesus was Messiah, after he had spent every year of his life with Jesus as his half-brother. Once he did get it, I'm certain he was determined that others get it. And as we see here, he's just as determined that they not forget it. So how does that apply to us today? Well, dealing with false teachers was not exclusive to the early church, and it's been a reality throughout church history. And it just seems to be getting more and more prevalent today. The false teachings we're inundated with today include popular leaders who teach people what makes them feel good, and they include just enough biblical truth that their heresy sounds believable. There is also charlatans who use Christianity for their own personal enrichment. And we have false prophets who claim that they've had a fresh revelation from God, but it just doesn't seem to line up with Scripture. And sadly, we have those in the church who use their leadership positions to abusively take advantage of others. And finally, there are those who bring false doctrines into the church that divides and destroys. Beyond that, we live in an all-news, all-the-time world that just seems to have an overwhelming amount of stuff just pouring at us all the time. And that, aside from dealing with apostates, makes it extremely challenging to keep your eyes on the prize. In the midst of all this, Jude's harsh reminder may be just what we need to remember that we once did get it, about the prize, and to remain determined to not forget it. That what we have been told about the prize is summed up well in that other scripture. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. And that is today's good news.